AI search engines are the future. ChatGPT usage has already surpassed Bing's usage. And if you've used AI search engines, you'll already know that tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, they're already a better experience than the traditional Google search. So if you care at all about your business or potentially even your client's business showing up in search results, I feel it makes complete sense to dedicate time to learn how to consistently rank in AI search engines, which is exactly what I've done over the past couple of weeks. I've dived deep down the rabbit hole to bring together this full AI search engine course. So make sure you watch through all of this video where I'm going to tell you exactly how to rank in AI search engines and give away the checklist that I've been building over the past couple of weeks. Now, if you would like to take it a little bit further, I am also working on a product called Known, which helps brands score, monitor, and boost their visibility in AI search results. And I'll add the first link in the description if you'd like to sign up to the waiting list. But getting straight into it, this is my AI search engine masterclass. This is everything that you've got to come. And do not worry, because in this masterclass, I'm not going to tell you how to optimize for long tail keywords. It's not going to be the super generic stuff that you can find anywhere else on the internet. It's going to be my real analysis of 100+ studies and articles, as well as also my own findings of doing analysis on search engines myself. And how we're going to break it down, what you're going to get in this video is how AI search engines work, what is AI search engine optimization, what influences AI results, and then my 8-step AI optimization checklist. Of course, if you want, you can just skip to the end of the video to get that checklist, but I do really think it's important because AI search engines are new and function differently to Google. I do think it's really important to understand exactly how they work so you can reverse engineer them to ultimately rank high and attract target customers. So getting straight into it, how AI search engines work. So how they work is, as you know, a user will visit an AI search engine such as SearchGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, etc. They're then going to enter a search query, and this is where things get distinctly different because the average ChatGPT prompt is actually 23 words, which when we compare it to Google's average search length is 4.2 words. So there's a massive difference, around 5x longer in ChatGPT. And as a result, 70% of the search queries that go into ChatGPT have a unique intent, i.e. the intent of what someone is searching is completely different to what you would get into Google. And the reason for this is you can ask AI search engines to do things. You can ask them to find the best something, conduct research. Heck, there's even deep research now, which allows AI search engines and these AI tools to do a deep dive and do research in really complex topics. So what your target customers are searching into AI search engines is completely different, which is why you need to have a different way of thinking and you need to know these things that I'm going to be walking through. So once they enter the search query, the AI search engine then processes the query. It understands it by breaking it down, removing unnecessary words. It then enhances the query to fully understand, well, if the user is asking this, what might they also want to know? And then it structures the query into a format that makes it easier for searching. And if you ever want to sort of look what this looks like, head over to advanced research on Gemini and ask it a question. And you'll actually see what advanced research does. It actually breaks down exactly what it's going to do in order to find the answer to your question. So here I search best running shoes for a marathon, and this broke down exactly what it needs to do in order to find the best running shoes. I'm going to come back to this later, but this is really helpful because when you're understanding how to rank in AI search engines, if you're going to understand how those AI search engines process and break down the query, that makes things a lot easier. AI search engines then do something called information retrieval. And this is actually the R in RAG. And RAG is something that you'll hear a lot when it comes to AI search engines. All that happens, it processes the query, it then retrieves the information in order to display the response to that user. So it will find matches in its index. It will then rank those results in order to provide the best responses to the user. So informational retrieval, which then takes us really nicely onto the index, because in order for AI search engines to get that info in the first place, they need to be able to have a pool of information to pull from. and that is the index, really similar to how Google has a index. And essentially how index works is these AI search engines will crawl the web. They'll go through tons of different web pages to scrape information. They'll also fetch external data. So let's say certain AI search engines like Gemini, it's got a partnership with Google Flights. It has the ability to go to third party, to different data sources in order to enhance the information that it stores. It then processes and structures that data in a way that's really easy to retrieve information from, and then obviously updates that over time. So, of course, if you want to show up in AI search engines, not only do you need to understand the queries that people are searching, which are different to, as we discussed, Google, but you also need to make sure that your website and your brand is actually stored in the index. So when it comes to the R in brag, information retrieval, you're actually able to be picked up. Because once we know how this happens, we can make sure that we're actually stored. And then when AI search engines go to retrieve information, we can make sure that we're prioritized in the results. Now, one thing that I've definitely come to realize when it comes to analyzing AI search results is these AI search engines are just master compressors. They scrape a load of information, they take data via APIs, and they're just amazing at compressing and then allowing someone to easily retrieve the best information from that index. So, yeah, if you want sort of an easier way to understand things, that's how these first three processes work. We then get to ranking and filtering. So the search engine has pulled out the information that it believes matches the query. It will then score those results based on how relevant and high quality it is. And then it will personalize and filter based upon the person that is actually searching. And I believe that's where ads are going to inevitably come into play in the future. AI search engines will have ads and they'll be hyper personalized to what the AI search engine knows about that person and based on the information that it pulls from its index. So there's ranking and filtering, and then we then get to generating an answer, which is the G in RAG. This is essentially where the AI search engines will use AI models in order to generate a response. It will then verify the accuracy, which sometimes still isn't fully correct, which is why we see hallucinations still happen in AI search engines. And then finally, it will deliver the results. So it will show the answer and it will format it in a way that it believes best matches the thing that the person was looking for. That's why sometimes it might show videos, images, snippets, and information in a really easy to understand and digest way. So AI search engines process the query, pull information based upon that query and based upon what it thinks the user wants to know from its index. It then ranks and filters that information, generates an answer, and then displays it in the best way possible for that user. And then finally, it will then train based upon how that user interacts. So if the user asks more questions, if it clicks on certain links, this all goes into training the AI search engine in order to make the results better over time. So hopefully you're still with me now. But as I said, I think it's really important to understand how they work, because if you don't understand how they work, how can you reverse engineer them and how can you show up in AI search engine results? So that's how they work. So therefore, what is AI search engine optimization? So now we know how they work. If we break it down into the fundamentals, AI search engine optimization requires us to ensure our website and brand is found in the indexing process, i.e. we want to make sure that we're stored in the index so we can actually be pulled in the first place. Then we need to make sure we prioritize our brand and website in the index so that it's found during information retrieval. Then, of course, once our brand and website is prioritized, we need to make sure it actually passes through the filtering process to ensure that it's going to rank high in the answer. We don't just want to be in the answer. We want to make sure that we rank as high as possible so our target customers actually know about us and can click through to our website. So as such, we need to ensure that our website is technically crawlable by AI, and we need to understand the ranking factors that we can actually influence so that we prioritize in those search results. So before moving on to the AI search engine optimization checklist, what I'm first going to do is show you actually what influences the recommendations that come through in AI search engines, both on a general basis. So if you're looking for something general like running shoes, and then also on a local basis. So no matter what your business or what your clients do, you're going to understand what influences the search results so that you can show up in them. So starting off with general recommendations, as I've said, I've taken a real big deep dive into these search results myself, analyzing hundreds and also going through all the top articles. And as you can see here, depending upon the different search results that you'll type in, not only do you get a different format of the answer, but the references that pull through, i.e., the sources, are very, very different. And this is what's important when it comes to AI search engine optimization. You need to understand what citations and what sources they're pulling through and how they influence the results so you can ultimately get featured in these so you can then appear in AI search engines. When it comes to general recommendations, the most important thing is list mentions. You want to make sure that you're featured in all of the listicles in your industry to push you to the top. So let's say, for example, you sell running shoes. You want to make sure that you're featured in all of the listicles when it comes to the best running shoes for whatever your product is. As you can see here, most of the sources that are actually pulled are these listicles: the best marathon racing shoes, best running shoes in 2025. If I was Nike and I wanted to make sure that I'm showing up as much as possible, I would spend potentially whatever it costs to make sure that I'm ranking in the top one or two on these results, because I just need to make sure that these AI search engines, the information that they store in their index, that I'm prioritizing them. So when someone's looking for running shoes, I'm then prioritizing the results that pull through. And of course, if you're not showing at all, the first thing that you need to do is analyze these results and make sure you're ultimately in those listicles. So the top thing is list mentions. We then have website authority. So your website still needs to be optimized. You still need to have a good amount of backlinks and also brand search. You need to be a recognized brand with a high website authority, both topical authority and also your domain authority, to make sure you rank high in the search engines, because these AI search engines will pull information from traditional search engines like Bing and Google in order to influence the results, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Microsoft owns, I think, around 49% of OpenAI. So ChatGPT gets its data from Bing. So if you're not ranking high in Bing, if you don't have good brand search, a good website authority, ranking well in Bing, then you're also potentially not going to be featuring in these search results. Then it's EAT and affiliations. So you want to make sure that your website, it shows that you are the expert within a certain field, and you also have really good affiliations. You work with good brands. You're mentioned on really strong websites such as Wikipedia. As you can see here, the top source that was pulled through was actually an article about Nike Vaporflies in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, which, if you think about it, is actually really rogue. Why is this showing up for this? But because this was around controversy around running and marathon and wearing these shoes in marathons, Wikipedia is a key source that ChatGPT goes to. So if it is at all possible, you want to make sure that you're showing up on these authoritative sites in order to create that affiliation between AI search engines and your brand. And then finally, moving on to online reviews. So that obviously pulls through to making sure you're being featured in the listicles, but also that you have a really good authoritative brand presence. So when these AI search engines assess your brand and know that you're trustworthy, and they know that you're worthy of showing up in the results. And as I mentioned earlier, if you really want to understand how these search engines prioritize their results, if you head over to Gemini and Deep Research and you type anything in, it itself is going to show you how it finds a result. So for best running shoes for marathon, you can see here that it's going to find the top running shoes for marathon runners in 2025 from reliable sources like Runner's World or similar. So you would want to make sure that you're getting featured in Runner's World. And again, maybe in your niche, when you did this test, you're going to find something similar. Then you can see here that it's going to find reviews of shoes from actual marathon runners. So UGC is really important in AI search engines. Then it's going to find information about specific features of the shoes that make them good, such as cushioning, stability, and durability. So again, this would be things and characteristics that you'd want to make sure is spoken about when it comes to your product or service or you have on your website. It's then going to find information on the different types of running shoes and which type is best for marathons. So again, marathon specificity. And then it's going to find information about how to choose the right size and fit for running shoes, as well as find information about how to break in new running shoes before a marathon. So really, really detailed. It goes through a lot of different steps in order to find that information. And you can do the exact same for whatever you want to rank for, to make sure you're ticking off all these points for AI search engines. So that is general recommendations. I'm now going to go through local a little bit faster before we get onto the chat list itself. Local recommendations, the most important thing is local business reviews, especially Google My Business reviews. This is obviously so important for local SEO on Google. It's also the most important thing when it comes to AI search engines. And the second most important thing is list mentions. So again, list mentions are so important. And I did a little bit of testing myself or speaking to a friend who wants to rank higher for best SEO agency in London. And when I was analyzing the results, you can see it's really interesting what shows up. When I typed in best SEO agency in London on ChatGPT, you could show a map showed up. And then also the list of citations was also super interesting because not only are you seeing a list of websites that rank well on search engines, you're also seeing the listicles underneath. So therefore, it's not really a surprise that website and Google My Business Authority is super important because you not only want to make sure you're getting featured in the lists, but you also want to make sure that your website ranks high for the search term that you want to rank for. Because again, as I mentioned before, these AI search engines use normal search results in order to fill up their index, do the prioritization. So you want to have that two-touch approach, optimizing your Google My Business and having a well-ranked website, which also gets featured in these listicles. And then as you can see here, online reviews are also super important. And again, I did the exact same. I typed in on Gemini Deep Research, best SEO agency London. It broke down all the things that it would do in order to find that agency. So this could work as a really nice checklist if you wanted to do the same. And then when I analyzed the search results, I also saw that you can see these listicles are pulling through. Now, super interestingly, even though the business that showed up at the top of the search engine results page didn't say the same, there was a business that always stayed sort of in the top 1, 2, 3 of agencies. And this was actually Pearl Lemon. And the reason why Pearl Lemon was doing so well from what I found, they consistently showed up in the top 3 of the listicles. They actually had the most amount of 5-star Google reviews when I analyzed their website. As you can see here, 162. And while they weren't the top of the listicles, they were often second. They were second here in ChatGPT. They were second here in Perplexity. And a big reason why is they are treating this as a holistic approach, doing everything possible. When it comes to online marketing, they're getting reviews, they're ranking well on Google, and that's why they consistently show. So there you are, guys. That is what influences AI search engines, which leads us really well onto the AI search engine optimization checklist. I have got sort of an overview here, which I'll walk you through now. And then, as I mentioned, the second link in the description will be an access to this full resource. So if you want to go through the AI ranking factors in more detail, and then also see a full list and guides when it comes to optimization tactics, then feel free to check that out and you'll be able to access the full resource, as well as also sign up to the waiting list for Known, which, as I mentioned, is my tool that allows you to score, monitor, and boost your visibility in AI search engines. But now, actually getting into the checklist, getting into what you've been waiting for, I really want this to be as actionable as possible. So let's just get straight into it. Now, the first thing that you want to be doing when it comes to ranking in AI search engines is building a list of the top listicles in your niche and outreaching to make sure you get listed in the top 3. As I've already shown you, getting featured in listicles is so important, whether it comes to local results or general results. So find out what the best thing in your industry listicles are and make sure you're featured in the top 3, even if it requires paying, because ultimately this is going to help you generate leads directly from that listicle, but it's also going to train these AI search engines so they know you're the best in your industry. So therefore, you should be ranking higher in the search engines. Then moving on to the second thing you need to do to rank in AI search engines is build relevant reviews. If you're a local business, make sure you're getting reviews on Google Maps, Trustpilot, etc. If you're a SaaS business, make sure you're getting reviews in G2 and Capterra. Whatever niche and sort of specific review platform that is for your industry, make sure you're building it into your process to consistently get reviews. Because as you saw from Gemini's deep research, it actually heads over to the reviews and finds whether those reviews are suggesting you should be showing up in the results. As you can see here, when Gemini was looking for the best SEO agency London, the first thing that it did was find the top SEO agencies based on reviews and ratings on Clutch, Google, Yelp, and other similar platforms. So find what the relevant platforms are for your industry and make sure you're consistently getting reviews on those. Now, moving on to the third thing is I want you to do a little bit of an audit and ask AI what it knows about your brand. So, for example, another business of mine, SEO Space, the SEO plugin for Squarespace, if I wanted to make sure I was boosting their visibility for that product, I would ask AI search engines what it knows about SEO Space. I would audit the results to see what is coming up. And if it wasn't coming up, I would make sure that I built authoritative brand mentions in places like Reddit, Wikipedia if possible, industry websites, high authority websites to make sure that the different places that AI search engines are training on, they can see my business mentioned. And ideally, I would also influence the text that was around my brand mention so I can train AI search engines on what it actually knows about my brand. So make sure you do that audit because it will not only tell you whether AI even knows who you are, but you'll also see the information that it knows so you can begin to influence and ultimately change what comes up in those results. Now, moving on to the fourth thing, and that is adding schema markup to key pages on your website and making sure things like schema markup are filled with unique fact-filled information. Where possible, you want to make sure the schema markup is as high up the page as possible and has a clear structure. Make sure you pull it through a schema markup testing tool. And the reason being is these AI search engines know and understand schema markup. And when they see it on a website, they will use it in order to influence what it knows about that website. So make sure you're adding review schema. Make sure you're adding local business schema if you're a local business. Make sure you add FAQ schema that has FAQs that explains things about your business. Because these AI search engines, just like with Google's crawlers, will use this schema to understand more. And it's a brilliant way to influence what shows up about your brand if it isn't already showing up already. Now, moving on to the fifth thing, and that is matching the search intent. And the reason why you want to match search intent, not just on the pages you want to rank, but across your whole website, is because, believe it or not, 52% of the sources cited in AI overviews are not in the top 10 of Google. This means if you see AI overviews for a certain search term, over half of the things that show up in those AI overviews will not be on page one of Google. So what this means is if you're looking to try and rank in AI overviews, the best thing that you can do isn't try and rank higher for that specific search term. It's making sure that all of the content across your website is high quality, because by doing that, by matching the intent, by providing the best possible content for your target customer, it's going to boost the likelihood that these AI overviews use any of your pages in the sources at the top of Google. And this is also true with AI search engines because you don't specifically know the pages that these AI search engines are going to use as a reference in its answer. So you just need to make sure that all of your web pages are following these best practices to really maximize your chance of showing. So, and I think it really sort of shows the point that I'm getting at. You can't just rely on specific pages. It needs to be a holistic effort to rank in these search engines. Now, moving on to the sixth thing, I want you to make sure your content is accessible with clean HTML and has a good structure. And I don't want you to rely heavily on JavaScript because actually only Gemini and Applebot render JavaScript. So if you've got a JavaScript heavy web page, these AI search engines may actually not be pulling up all the content that you want it to. So you want to make sure that you've got a really clean, fast loading website that's accessible with clean HTML so that when these search engines, when these crawlers go through your website, when it gets the information to put into its index, you want to make sure that you're not relying on JavaScript so that all the information actually gets stored. So that when your target customer is searching for a search term, everything that you want to be retrieved is in the index. So you're maximizing your chances in order to show. Now, moving on to the seventh thing is continue ranking well on Google and Bing SERPs. As I've already walked you through, ChatGPT uses Bing search results in order to influence what it shows. So it naturally makes sense that you shouldn't just be focusing on Google or AI search engines. As I mentioned, you need a holistic approach. You need to make sure you're ranking well everywhere. You're doing more general marketing, building brand search. You're doing everything possible to show these AI search engines that you're trustworthy and you're credible, you're ranking well in other places, so you make it almost impossible for these search engines not to show you in the results. And then finally, the last thing is making sure that you're tracking your AI visibility. If you're not tracking, if you're not gathering data, ultimately you're going blind. So whatever you decide to do after watching this video, make sure you're tracking how you're showing up on AI search engines. Because if, like me, you believe AI search engines are the future, you don't want to be left behind in that race. And of course, if you would like to join the waiting list for Known, you can head to tryknown.ai in order to see what we're working on, join the wait list, and get beta access. There you are, guys. That is a complete AI search engine SEO masterclass. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have, please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm going to be sharing at least 4 videos about AI search engines, how to rank in ChatGPT after this one, so you don't want to miss out. And of course, I'll see you in the next video.